Hello, Leah.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for joining me today and talking with us about your cancer journey.
You're welcome.
Great, I'm super excited about this because we got connected actually through my sister,
Yeah.
and she was telling me the odds and ends about your story. And every time she would mention something about, oh, I have this friend who's doing this, I'd be like, wow, that's part of my program. That's exactly what I teach. And so as time goes on, over months, many months, she kept mentioning these things and eventually got to a point where I got to talk to this person. Who is she? And then I find out you're also from Edmonton, Alberta.
Yep.
Right, so that's
Yep.
also where I'm from. And often we hear these stories of cancer survivors or these outrageous stories about different feats, but they're always from somewhere else, somebody else, and we don't know them personally. So now I get to meet you personally and have a very personal connection to your story, which is great. I really appreciate that. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're really welcome. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah.
And so one of the reasons I'm really excited about this is we get to talk about your cancer journey. So I'll ask that you just go through that. But if I summarize from my understanding, is that you had stage 4 cancer. You got to the point you had stage 4 cancer. And you went the traditional route through our mainstream medical system here in Canada.
Yeah.
And you eventually got to a point where they could no longer help you, and you decided to take matters into your own hands. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think a lot of people get to that point. With my personal cancer story, I didn't have cancer personally, but my immediate family and even extended family has had cancer throughout my entire life. Since I was literally 2 and 3 years old is when my grandparents first got diagnosed and passed away, and then it's continued on a regular basis since then with the rest of my family.
Right.
And I've seen this same pattern repeat itself over and over again. But you were able to break the pattern when you decided, screw this, I'm going to do this on my own and figure these things out for myself. So that is very exciting.
Yeah.
So with that introduction, can you just maybe start from the beginning and tell us how, things that you were feeling and what you went through and your experiences, and just kind of put your take on it?
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And, I can now tell my story without tears in my eyes generally, but I can't promise that it won't happen.
No problem.
But yeah, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 41. And at the age of 40, that's when they say you should start getting mammograms. So I was just thinking I should go get a mammogram.
Yep.
So then at that time, I was, the mammogram came back and I had cancer, and then it was that it spread into my lymph nodes. So after I did some studies with that, so it already spread. And so they, at that point.
So when you first found out, it had already spread.
It already spread into my lymph nodes. So that was stage 2.
Yeah.
And I had no pain. I'm a cyclist, and I was beating my best times. I was extremely strong. And very competitive, and it was just something that I just did and found this out. So so from there it was just a whirlwind, and at that time me and my husband at the time were already kind of going through the motions of a separation, and so then that didn't happen, and he was like, well, it's probably not the best timing to do that, and so we tried to patch things up for the period of me going through the protocol. So so the protocol, I just trusted the medical system. Right. So, as we all do,
Yes.
You don't question it. It's just what we brought out. You're sick, you go to the doctor. That's what you do. So,
Especially our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, however, I was also I was already kind of experienced holistic stuff where, I was doing a lot of supplements and some different things already. So I was already kind of diving in, but very loosely, very loosely. So my first meeting, it's scary. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. You make sure you have somebody with you, and you have that first appointment with the oncologist.
So
and
this is before you knew the results?
this was after. So
So
after
you knew
I
the
knew my
results,
results,
and now that your first appointment with
yeah,
the
and
oncologist.
it happened really quickly because they've already discovered that it spread into the lymph nodes. So it was like, you have days to make decisions. So it's very quick. So,
Yes.
so yeah. So things that I wished I would have taken my time, would have researched more at the time, but I just, you get into panic zone. You think people have cancer, but not me. I'm healthy. I eat healthy. I never ate McDonald's food. I never did, I know people, my friends, who should have cancer.
Right.
Right?
Yes,
Why
absolutely.
me? So that's kind of where I was. So it's super shocking. You have young kids too. So anyways, so you go through the motions, and at that appointment with my oncologist, she kind of explained everything, what they're going to do, the 6 rounds of chemo, and 3 weeks apart, and then the radiation. And of course I needed a mastectomy before that. And
so their protocol was all three.
All
the
three.
surgery,
Yeah.
then the chemo, and then the radiation.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So from there, I got out of that appointment, and I don't know, you get a gut feeling, and before I never really took my gut feeling seriously.
Right.
I guess we just never, I don't know, we're not taught this, or we just move away from this. And
Sure.
I've completely changed as a person now, and I am very in tune with my body, very in tune with my gut response, and it's there for a reason. And I just said, I feel like I was sold chemo.
Right.
And my husband at the time, he said I was crazy. So he was like, what do you mean? They're like trying to save you. This is the only way. And then I explained my concerns to a couple of other people, and they were like, I really hope that you don't decide to take this on. And they're like, yeah, we know people who went the holistic way, and they died. And there was this fear that just engulfs you. And so you're making all your decisions based on fear.
Right. And especially when you reach out to try and get that external support, and then you get the negative feedback, or at least the unsupportive feedback, where it's like, now you start to feel like not only is your doctor misleading you, but then the people around you too. It's like, why can't you see what I see? Or why can't you understand how I feel about this kind of thing? Right.
So you ignore that feeling.
Right. You push it down.
Push it down, and you just go with the motions. Okay, this is what we should do. So, and I did. And I was sick. I was allergic to chemo. So they had to give me Benadryl before I would take the chemo. I know some people who went through their treatments and they did well. Like they literally were able to take a day off, one day of work. They had it on a Friday, or no, they had them on a Friday, so they only lost the Friday.
Right.
And they were back at work on the Monday. It was amazing. So I always thought, I'm so strong, I'm so fit.
Right,
I'm
for
so
you it shouldn't be a
healthy.
problem.
I'm going to go in it, and I'm going to come out. I'm going to get new boobs. That's like, whatever. So of course at first we went through the surgery, and that was, and that was done. And I don't know, I didn't have a loss at that point. It was just, for that, I just had such an optimistic mindset about everything, because you have to. Like, you make your decision, and you just lock
then you get
in,
behind it, right?
And you get behind it, and that's how I am and who I am, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it positively, and I did. It was hard, and I did it. But then when I got to the chemo part, I thought I would be much stronger, much better, but it wasn't. I was sick for 10 days, and then and then just when I was getting better, then of course it's 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks I had my treatment. So then I would have my treatment again. So and then a lot of times they had to postpone it because my white blood count wasn't up to, was too low, or my liver wasn't doing well. And every time, they don't want you to take any supplementation, because that could affect it.
Right.
So,
So these ideas you had about, maybe I can do this to help, or that, and then they're saying no, don't
and they're
do it.
saying no.
Right.
And then I ended up developing a blood clot, so I ended up having to getting a port. So it was harder than I thought.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, at the end of the day, went through it, and then went through a daily radiation right after that. And actually, it was really funny because I had a trip with my company that I had earned, and it was to Israel
Okay.
and to the Dead Sea.
Okay.
And it was literally a week after that all my treatments. And I just figured I'd be fine to go.
Right. Your treatments are done.
Yeah.
You'll be feeling better.
Yeah.
Right.
Meanwhile, during all of this, on my 4th round of chemo, I had to call it quits on actually the night of my 4th round of chemo. Had to call it quits on my marriage and realized this person was making me sick.
Right.
So that night I was so sick and I had to pack up my stuff and drive to my mom's. And yeah, and then I was just and then I had to sell the house and move, and
Yeah. All
it
the
was a lot.
parts of
So there's
separation,
the
yeah.
emotion, right? So
Yeah.
you can probably see it in me. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. So was an interesting time because I was also introduced to a holistic doctor
Okay.
with my profession that I was doing.
So that be like a naturopath or what kind of okay.
Yeah, so he's well known in California.
Okay.
And
So not even Canadian.
no, not
Okay.
Canadian. And I was introduced into him because the company I was working with was adopting these supplement lines, and
Okay.
he was telling me the benefits, and they kind of wanted to use me as an example to either
A testimonial for the company.
Testimonial, yeah.
Yeah.
So after, to get my health back and
Yeah.
to see what it was, or even help me during.
Sure.
So, which was conflicting with my oncologist at the
Of
time.
course, right, yeah.
So, anyways, and I guess I was just bold enough, and I was so sick, right? And I asked him, I said, if your wife was going through this, would you do the protocol that I'm doing? And he was like, oh my gosh.
And you're talking about the existing protocol from the medical system.
From the medical
right,
system.
not the new one you're trying to do with him.
No.
Right.
No. So the steps that I decided to do.
Right.
And he's like, he thought about it, and he's like, can't believe you're asking me this. And I know
Right.
he hesitated a lot,
Right.
but then he said, and I think you have to be so careful now with what you say,
Yes. And
right?
I
So
speak
that
about this a little bit too.
I won't give his
yeah.
name or anything,
Sure.
but he said, absolutely not.
Right.
So I shared that with a couple of people, and they actually got angry.
Right.
Because I knew in my gut, I'm like, I'm killing myself.
You could feel it.
I could feel it.
Sure.
I was like so sick. And I'm like, I'm killing everything. But you're like, you have to, because you have to kill the cancer. But I'm killing everything.
Right.
Like, I'm bald. I have no eyelashes. I have no eyebrows. I've got, I'm
Trying to recover from surgery.
surgery. I'm like, literally all I could do is sit and watch Netflix, and that is not who I am.
Right.
So he, and just the response, I thought that was interesting how everyone had such a response. It was so strong. I was like, I just was starting to just be interested more. So anyways, at the end of it, I got on the supplements, and that was actually where I got really heavy onto supplements, was after I was done all my stuff.
Okay.
And I was back on my bike, and I did 100-kilometer. I went on my trip to Israel, first of all.
Okay,
And that
wow,
was
good.
Probably shouldn't have gone. I
Right.
was bleeding. I was so raw. I was in
wow.
so much pain.
Yeah.
And I had to sleep a lot. But I went to Israel. I
Yeah.
went to the Dead Sea. I was, it was an incredible trip, but it was kind of a blur because I was still like really
Right.
drugged up. And,
Yeah, the chemo brain.
Yeah, chemo brain. And chemo brain is a thing, actually. And doctors won't tell you that it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they will deny it. I literally could not remember my name or my best friend's name. And chemo brain lasted for about 2 years. So if anybody is feeling like I thought I was getting dementia. I
Right.
couldn't work. Really, I couldn't put things together. I was overwhelmed with anxiety afterwards. But that's why I dove into my cycling again, because the cycling I could do.
Right.
And then while I was cycling, it was like all the lights went on because all the
Okay.
endorphins got going.
Yeah.
And I felt happy, and I was like, okay, there I am. And then I could think for about an hour or two after a bike ride. And
Right.
then that was it.
Okay.
Then once the endorphins stopped and everything, it's like all the chemo brain came back.
Yeah.
So So anyways, where was I going with that? Like, okay, I went on that trip, and then, so we got the divorce, we sold the house, I moved into my new house, and
So if I can take you back to the divorce,
okay,
that's obviously a big step at any point in life, but also with cancer added onto that. How, and this is a big part of the program that I offer, is dealing with the relationships and the emotions
Right.
in your life, not
Right.
just the technicalities of the cancer itself.
Mm-hmm.
And once you made that decision and you went to your parents' place, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And was there a noticeable change? Like, did you feel just relief or a weight lifted off your shoulder, or can you explain
it was
that?
actually back to that holistic doctor that I had
Okay.
that conversation with, and I love him to death now. I still friends with him today, and have treatments with him afterwards. And he had said to me, Leah, you need to change. You need to look at everything in your life.
Right.
You need to look at your diet. You need to look at your activity. You need to look at your work. You need to look at your relationships.
Right.
And as soon as he said relationships, like my gut,
Right.
like we know
It resonated,
in
right? You
turn-
just
I
felt
knew
it. Yeah.
this marriage was making me sick.
Yeah.
And I was just, I think as a person, we have kids involved and we stay because of all these outside influence when it's literally making us sick and we're not able to show up to be how amazing we are because it's just because I don't want to blame him, but it just wasn't going to work.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I could not show up and be my best self, and he couldn't show up and be his best self.
There's no amount of change between the two of you that makes the situation better.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put blame, but it was very toxic.
Sure.
So as soon as he said that, I was like, huh. So, my diet, yes, it could have been better, but it was good, but I was like everybody else, because everybody else did it, drinking the wine or two at night.
Right.
When after the mountain bike rides, we go for beers,
Yeah.
and just having that social life, that was great and accepted and normal,
Yeah.
right? So, but when your body is dealing with high stress, which is a huge amount of toxicity, I think it's like you already have so much toxicity because of stress. You just adding little bits, and it's like, okay, all that wine all the time, which
Right.
I always think it's funny because they do like breast cancer stuff for wine, and it's been proven that red wine causes cancer.
Right. Wow. And it's a rabbit hole too, because even mammograms, right?
I know. And that's the other thing. I will never do a mammogram again.
Right.
So once you get into this world and you start realizing all this stuff, you're like, oh my
Right.
gosh, what a messed up system we have. And we're
Yeah.
relying it. And it really, truly is sick care. Like,
Yes.
it's a Band-Aid. And sadly, when it doesn't work, it makes it more aggressive, which
Right.
brought me to where I am today, right? Or 2 years ago. So yeah, because I stayed active and loved my activity, I could tell that my health was getting better, but then I could tell something was wrong.
Right. So how long ago was it when you first found out?
So I'm 48 now, so I was 41.
Okay. So 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And now you went through that whole process that you just described.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you get a clean bill of health at some point, or how
Good
did
question.
that work out?
No, I rang a bell.
You rang a bell, a physical bell.
It's the bell at the cross.
Okay, at the
Right?
Cross Institute in Edmonton. Yeah.
Yeah. So you ring a bell, and I was like, so good question. So then you go to a mammogram, and then and then I researched actually, even getting breasts and whatever, and that makes women so sick afterwards. So I
Right.
was like, okay, well, that's out of the question. So then when they did the mammogram, they're like, well, we didn't check this side. And they go, well, you don't have a breast. And I'm like, but that's the side that had the cancer. So how do I know that I'm cancer free? And they're like, yeah, we get a lot of people who complain about that. And I'm like, you
Shocking.
think?
Yeah.
So we don't have any tests to tell me that my cancer, the cancer is gone? And
Yeah.
no, I really was.
But they got you to ring a bell.
I got rang a bell.
Yeah.
That I finished the treatments, but there was no blood work. There's no like, it's.
So it was more of just a conclusion of what they had to offer,
Yeah.
not so much
I
a
went
clean
through
bill of
their
health or
protocol.
anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then where did that leave you? So you ring the bell and you go home, and what happens after? Anything or just nothing?
Well, they do the follow up.
Okay.
Right. So the mammogram.
Okay. Yeah.
Which, how are you feeling? You
Yeah.
do some blood work,
Okay.
which is not, the blood work never triggered me having the cancer from the beginning. It was the mammogram because you do blood
Okay.
work all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, so yeah, no, was very frustrating.
So the blood work never found it in the first place, but they continue doing it, expecting to find if
Yeah.
you still have it or not. The
Yeah.
logic of our system.
Yeah, and maybe there's other extensive blood work that you can do in the States
Right.
or whatnot that can give you those numbers.
Yeah.
But because our healthcare is free, we have limited
Right.
availability, and I
Right.
think that is a problem.
Yeah.
So when we're fighting for our free healthcare here in Canada, that's an issue. We
Absolutely.
don't have a very good system for free.
No. And it's interesting, not to get too much off the topic here, but you can look up almost any metric of the Canadian healthcare system, and we are ranked very low in the world. We're not in the top. If you think of the G7 or whatever rating system of where we fit in the world, our healthcare system falls way below any other economic class that we fall into.
Yeah.
And that's across the board for any metric you want to look up.
Yeah.
And yet it's interesting because so many people defend the system. And
I
yet some of
know.
those same people will still travel to the States to go get their treatment for whatever ails them.
And it's even gotten worse since after our COVID times and everything. It's people are waiting for, you can't get
Right.
into surgeries. You can't get
We
it.
lost so much of our healthcare workers
Yeah.
because they wouldn't comply with all the orders and everything. And now we're on
Yeah.
a skeleton crew across the country.
We are. So So anyways, I rang a bell.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
that was it. And then I had to just monitor my health. So
And how were you feeling at that point?
I was super sick
So even after the protocol,
Oh, that's what I was going to say. And
trip
then I
to
got
Egypt.
on, and then
Yeah.
I got on the supplements that I was doing,
Right.
which was a really clean greens. We had molecular hydrogen. We had like
Right.
something to help you keep alkaline, which is
Right.
also very controversial, but there's different sides to everything.
Sure.
But, and I felt good. And I would take these molecular hydrogen, and I was like, I could literally feel when I needed them within
Oh,
4
okay.
hours.
Yeah.
That's when I became a believer
Right.
of supplements.
Because you had the side-by-side comparison. You knew what it felt like to
Yeah.
have your radiation or your chemo.
Yeah.
And then you knew what it felt like to take some of these supplements.
Yeah.
And you can just have that gut feeling
Yeah.
that, okay, this is helping, and that was not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I could maybe because my body was so depleted, I was like, I would take these greens and be like, oh my gosh, like I could feel it in my body do good.
Right.
I think maybe because I was so sick and so depleted. So with taking these supplements, and I was back up, and I did a 100-kilometer ride from Jasper to Maling Lake.
Okay.
So we had that booked, and that was done in May long weekend. And my treatments, I think my overall treatments were over in February.
Okay. So just a couple months.
Couple of months.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't fast. I just kept popping my molecular hydrogen.
Yeah.
And away I went, and like TikToks.
Yeah.
And away I went, and so, and I was doing really, really well. Really well. So
at this point, you're not really too worried. You have some supplements. You finished
Yeah.
your protocol. You're starting to bike again.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, you're kind of on the path. You've made the right
yeah.
choices.
I made the divorce, which
And
I felt
huge.
was I divorced my cancer.
Right.
So that
And-
was the cause.
So when you say that, it reminds me of my story. When I first started my website a few years back,
Okay.
that's what I actually called my website, divorceyourcancer.ca.
Oh, wow.
I've since changed it and I've
Interesting.
taken a
Interesting
different
that I
route, but
said
that was
that.
my original idea based on that whole scenario of
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about what you're eating. I mean, that's a big part of it, but there's so
Mm-hmm.
much more to the whole process. And so the mindset of not only divorce in your, say, relationships, but the whole
Mm-hmm.
mentality of this medical system and everything that goes along with it. But anyways, it was just interesting how
So
these things come up.
yeah. And then, I just learned more and more because, of course, working with this holistic doctor as a business person,
Right,
he always just dropped seeds
right,
because he's been attacked by the healthcare system constantly.
Yeah.
So, and the way he would do it, it's always kind of comical and stuff like that. But you'd pick up the seeds,
Right.
right? And you got it. So I was like, really? And then I just started asking questions and starting doing more research and becoming even more curious and listening to him more because now he's becoming kind of a friend
right.
and he was a big part of me just opening my eyes more up into outside of our medical world and what is possible.
Right. So what it sounds like is unofficially he kind of became your cancer coach,
Yeah,
right? Somebody to bounce some ideas off of, somebody that
Yeah.
had some context to feed it back to you.
Fair.
Right? So kind of a
Fair.
free cancer coach potentially.
Yeah, so I thought I was like golden until just a few years ago, and I was gutted because I did a lot of stuff, and I just knew, and I still know I'm going to beat it. So and that's the thing, is just having the right mindset.
Right.
And so when I was re-diagnosed and that was a whole rigmarole that I had to go through to figure out that I had cancer again, because it was during COVID.
So how did that happen?
So,
So it'd be about what, 2021 or so?
so bad with dates, 2024.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's around 2021. Yeah, so
And I bet you about 5 years or just over 5 years after the original diagnosis, right?
yeah, real close. I was about to celebrate.
Right.
Yes.
Because
So
that
when I was-
5-year mark in the medical industry
Yeah.
is their benchmark for saying, okay, we've cured you.
That's
if you
right.
make 5 years.
That's
And then
right.
what typically happens, I think they've selected 5 years specifically because they know shortly after the 5-year mark,
Yeah.
most people come back with a metastasis or second round of the cancer.
right.
But it doesn't show up in their stats because they've cleared the 5-year anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was really, really close to that 5-year mark and I just could tell. So from my mountain biking, I could just tell I wasn't, I was exhausted.
So your
I
energy
wasn't-
levels.
Energy levels. I had no energy. I remember just saying to one of the girls on the bike ride going, oh, something's wrong. Like, I just don't have it. Like, my muscles didn't have it. My energy levels didn't have it. So I was like, all right. So going to my doctor, she was, more interested, sadly, in making sure that I was all up to date with my shots.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Right.
And I'd made the decision not to go down that road. And so then, it was just very frustrating relationship because I'm like, I'm not feeling well. What
Right.
can we do?
Was this a new doctor or the same one that
No,
had gone
same
through your whole
Same
process?
doctor, yeah. And so I ended up just checking myself into emergency because I
Right.
just did not feel well. I'm like, I'm just going to go in and see what they can do, get some tests.
Yeah.
And so they did all the tests, they did the x-rays. I'm like, I just can't breathe. Like, I feel tired all the time. I can't breathe. I'm getting some pains inside of me, like my insides hurt.
Okay.
So I'm like, something is not right.
Yeah, never a good sign.
Never a good sign when
Right.
your insides hurt, right? So I was, so I went in and they ran the test. They, did the heart, what is it? I can't remember that heart machine. They ran that. They did an x-ray. They did some blood work and they said, after I was done, everything looks great. I'm like,
Right.
really? I go, the only thing that's off is your D-dimer. And it's like 100 times more than it should be.
Right. Just a little off.
But
yeah.
otherwise, everything's great. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what does D-dimer mean? Well, it means like it's usually a sign for blood clots, which I
Right.
don't have. So, so it could be from your chemo, and maybe your D-dimer has always been high. And I'm like, but I don't feel good.
Right.
I said, I don't feel good, and the D-dimer is off, so that's a sign. And they're like, yeah, but we don't find anything else. So they just sloughed it off.
Just, yeah.
Sloughed it off. So I'm like,
Wow.
and of course, at that time, they were more interested in making sure that I was up to date with my shots.
Right.
Right? So,
Well, and outside of the COVID scenario, usually they're more concerned about high cholesterol numbers than your 100 times D-dimer level.
Right.
That actually meant something.
yeah, it meant I had high inflammation in my
Sure.
body. And so inflammation is disease.
Yeah.
And they just sloughed it off. So someone who's not a medical doctor,
Right.
I knew that.
Right.
So anyways, it's just so many holes. So anyways, so I left and I'm like, okay, well, I found a new doctor.
Okay.
So
Good for
that
you.
was like, okay, I got to figure out.
Because even that's a really tough choice. It's,
was-
I mean, it's not quite the level of getting a divorce, but now you're divorcing your doctor.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so you've already had that long relationship of getting you to that point.
Yeah.
So you're
I just
very.
think everybody was so mesmerized by getting people up to date with these shots that
Right.
I just wasn't getting care for the concerns I was looking
Right.
for and that I needed.
Right.
And yeah, it was a really strange time to have to deal with everything. So yeah, so go to my new doctor, and I literally, will you take me if I don't get these shots? Like,
Right.
And
That was the qualifying question. Right.
she's like, yes. I'm
Right.
like,
Oh, good.
okay. I said, I'm not well. Here's my background. Here's what I've already been through. And I think I might have been to emergency twice, actually. But anyways, what can we do?
Right.
And she goes, let's do some ultrasounds. Great. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And no one had said this before.
No one said this before. So yes, let's do
And your story
ultrasounds.
hadn't changed.
No.
You have the same situation.
Story,
Yeah.
Still feeling sick.
Yeah.
Still feeling tired.
Just a new doctor
New
that can think
doctor.
about something a little bit differently.
Yeah, let's think outside the box. Now, what
Yeah.
do we do? This is my history. This is not something we need to take lightly. So, anyways, so yeah, go to the ultrasound, and there's fluid on my lungs, and they can see the lesions. Do a CT scan, and there ended up being 2 liters of fluid on my lungs. How they didn't see it through an X-ray
Right.
blows my mind in emergency. So
Especially when you're telling them you have the shortness of breath. I can't
Yes.
breathe. You think
they
like,
did an X-ray on my lungs, and that's what
Right.
I do an X-ray right now on my lungs to see if there's fluid on them.
oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, were they even looking at my report?
Right.
Maybe they're looking at somebody else's
Right.
report. Like, there's so many errors in the medical system as well that we have to be our own advocate.
Right.
We have to stand up for our life and our health, like our life depends on it, which it
Yeah,
does.
which it does,
Which
yeah.
it does. And I get they're busy, I get everything, but it's your life, it's your
Yeah.
family. We owe it to ourselves and to our families to be healthy. So, anyways, so at the end of the day, so that was, not great, but
Right.
at least I knew. And
So now it's kind of round 2. You got some
Okay,
bad
now
news
we
again.
know.
You've been through it once, but
Yeah.
now it's like you thought you were clear, but you knew you had this feeling, and then you got the confirmation of it.
Yeah.
And then now what are you thinking at that point?
I was gutted.
Right.
So when my doctor said, it's not curable,
And that's this new doctor.
my new doctor,
Okay, so she just found out what the other doctors couldn't find.
Yeah.
And then says it's not
it's
curable.
not curable.
Wow.
But it's sustainable, whatever that meant at that time.
Right.
And I could tell she's a young doctor. She just got started. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's a great doctor. For the information she's able to provide me, right?
And did she give you a sense of why it wasn't curable?
So, well, the type of cancer that I have is a very aggressive hormone-fed cancer.
Okay.
And it now, when it goes on to your lungs, apparently, and it's on the outside of my lungs, kind of in between the lungs and the bag that holds your lungs. And apparently, just through their knowledge, it's not
Right.
curable.
Right.
Right? So So then you make your appointment with your oncologist, which was the same oncologist I had before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you keep them for life, I guess.
Yeah. Probably a little disheartening when you're going back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so at this time I'm taking my sister. So my sister came with me. And
Was anybody with you the first time you went through this?
yeah, my husband at the time was
there,
for the first few, and then I can't remember who came after that. My mom and my sister,
Okay.
probably between the two of them. And then so after so get to go see her again, and of course now they want to scan you for brain scan as well to make sure it hasn't moved into your brain. And
Right.
at that appointment, it was like, with our treatment, without our treatment, you can have 6 months to live,
Okay.
as long as it's not brain cancer. And if it's
Yeah.
brain cancer, you may only have a month.
Oh, wow. Yeah, not what you want to
And-
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with our treatment, we could extend you to 2 years of a semi-good life.
Right.
And then after that, you have to go into, maybe up to 5 years,
Right.
right?
Best
So,
case scenario.
Best case.
Or depending on how you look at it, maybe not best case.
Right.
Because they're going to keep you hopped up in drugs through the whole time. And
Correct.
You get
What
a
that
lot of
5
pain.
years look like.
right.
So, which I'll lead into and tell my story, because I did try for a little bit, to be honest. So we did the scans. Thank goodness it wasn't in my brain yet.
Oh, good.
Okay. And so when I was diagnosed, my daughter was going to the Yukon, and she was going for a couple of months and doing like this work thing. She goes and works for a farm, and then
Oh, right.
she could stay for free, and they feed her and everything. And she asked her if she could take her mom, and she said yes, and said
Wow.
she just got diagnosed.
Yeah.
So you get diagnosed with this, and you're like, if this is really my last couple of years, let me
Yeah.
just.
I might as well spend it in the Yukon.
Yeah. And I'm a hiker too.
Okay.
And she loves hiking. So we're like, and it was kind of early in my diagnosis, let's just get on the protocol for a bit. I knew I wanted to do a holistic way,
Right.
but I kind of like, okay, these are the answers now. I'll get in on it, and then maybe do this and holistic at the same time.
Right. And a lot of people arrive at that conclusion.
Yeah.
They have the disappointment of the system.
Yeah.
But they haven't been able to shift their paradigm
Yeah.
of, it's not working
I just
for
couldn't
me.
have the guts to
So
not
now you're
do
trying to
it.
find that middle ground solution.
Because
It's
when you
like,
get
well, I'll still do this.
told you have 2 years to live, maybe, and a semi-good life, what does
Right.
that look like? I
Right.
didn't know. So I was told, like, this time it wasn't hard chemo. It was targeted, which is pill.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so apparently it just attacks. It finds
Strange to think that a
kind of-
pill that you swallow is targeted, because that has to go
Right.
throughout your whole body to
Yeah.
get absorbed.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just
yeah.
interesting,
No, it is.
right?
Yeah. You got to think outside the box. And then you
Yeah.
have and because I'm not in menopause yet, so then they had to give me hormone injections every month, or else the chemo wouldn't work.
Okay.
Okay. And then because I'm also hormone fed, I had hormone blockers. So I had a lot of different things going on.
Yeah.
So also, again, I just say this just for other people to really have somebody and take notes
Right.
of what's going on, because if you are going that route, she literally, when I went there, I was putting me on the chemo pills, and then I had the other one, the hormone blockers, but I said, and she's like, hey, you're good to go, you're good. And I'm like, yeah, but what about, I thought I needed, an injection to put me into menopause. Oh, you're not in menopause yet? She forgot.
Right.
So I think they're just also so busy
Right.
that, because it wouldn't have, and I said, if I hadn't had asked that question, then the drugs I was taking wouldn't have worked.
Right.
Right?
And no one would have necessarily caught that.
No one would have caught it.
Right. You would just
So
slip right through.
There was a lot of errors like that along the way.
Sure.
We're not all perfect, for sure.
Yeah.
But you have to have someone, like, don't just trust they know what they're doing
Right.
and because there were so many mistakes along the way, from
Right.
the scans they did on me and not finding, we just, again, it's coming from a place where we just trust our doctors and we trust what they
Yeah.
tell us.
And
right?
I think, just anecdotally, probably 90% of the people I talk to have that exact same story.
Yeah.
Where things just got missed, obvious things got missed along the way.
So it makes you question
Right.
more.
And you're not the
more.
exception, you're the rule.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody can make it through without a major error or just missing something, that's the exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But you never know until you go through it.
exactly.
Right?
So I get on the right protocol. We go to Yukon.
Yeah.
Got to spend this amazing time with my daughter. We did so many hikes. But within a little while, I noticed that it's like my muscles would contract and they wouldn't let go.
Okay.
So it was like my muscles would stiffen up and then they wouldn't release. So
Right.
as soon as, yeah. So I just stopped. I didn't take my pills 2 days up going to the next hike.
The chemo pills.
Chemo pills.
Right.
And we were doing quite a few hikes. So I just
Okay.
already was cheating.
Right.
And,
And so it was better when you weren't taking the pills? That's why you weren't taking them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I noticed if I gave it-
Interesting how you feel better when you're not taking
Yeah.
their medicine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then anyways, we got up our mountains. We had an amazing trip. It was incredible. And then I came home and I continued on. And this was when I started on these, was like in May. We had our trip in June. And I'm still researching. I'm implementing a bunch of stuff
Right.
as I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point around Christmas time, and I am bloated. I'm now 50 pounds heavier,
Wow.
and I couldn't even walk 2 kilometers.
Right.
And I actually went for a walk, and I didn't even know if I could get back home.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, this can't go on.
Right.
So I was,
You're not going to make it there 5 years. That they're
I'm
telling
like,
you.
this isn't going to be a fun 2 years. So I'd stopped taking them for a week.
Just on
And
your
just
own.
to
You
see.
didn't talk to them.
No,
You didn't
talk
tell
to them.
anybody. You just,
just stopped taking them, and I'd start feeling better.
Right. Wow.
So then every year we do a backpacking trip, and we started this a few years ago, and I loved it so much. And we just carry all our stuff up the mountain, and we go backpacking, and we stay in a hut, and then when we're up the hut, we do several hikes from there. And so that was coming up to book. And my sister was going to come with me, my best friend, my daughter was going to come. And I said, guys, I can't even walk 2 kilometers without a pack right now. And not climbing a mountain. And they're like,
Right.
well, we'll carry your pack. And I'm like, but you guys don't get it. I guess when people don't understand, you really can't walk 2 kilometers on a
Right.
flat. And because they know me as
Right. The athlete.
So the athletic one, the sporty one. So I was like, no, I can't do it. And so then I had to make a decision. And that's when I'm like, if this is really if they are right, let's say they're right, is this really how I want to go?
Right. Is this how you want to spend your last couple of years?
Yeah.
Right.
So the answer was no.
Sure.
So, and just listening to, when you have to have those real raw questions, it's very humbling.
I bet.
Very humbling. So my answer was no. And it was also when you make a decision, you zone in on it.
Right.
Or that's the type of person I
Yeah.
am. Okay. So when I finally made that decision and it was clear and every fiber of my body was like, this is the decision.
Right.
That's when I really went into the research.
So when you made
And-
that decision, at that point, were you getting any other external support? Now, you knew that naturopathic doctor out of
I
the States.
did, yeah.
But outside of him, was, some of the people that you already talked to about this, were they now on board with you, or did you have any other external?
I wouldn't say.
So this is from your own willpower, I guess is what I'm getting at. This isn't
It
because
didn't
now
matter
you somebody
at
else's.
this point what other people said.
Right.
This was.
You were past that now.
I was already beyond
Right.
that, and I guess now at the point, my whole family knew that I was dying,
Right.
and the system has convinced everyone that I only had this period of time.
Right.
So
They
people are
bought
different.
into that.
People,
Right.
yeah, people are different. So they're not going to control you on your decisions.
Right.
Right. So, yeah. So anyways, so moving, so decided that this wasn't it, and I got off of everything, and I found a natural hormone blocker because it is an estrogen fed, and I didn't tell my oncologist for a bit. I was still like taking at least their hormone blocker. I told her I'm going to give it a break.
Right.
I just need to give it a break for a month or two. My body is not doing well, and I have to think about it. But I'm going to keep taking these. As long as you keep taking something from them,
Right. They kind of lay low.
you can still have access to their CT scans.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right? So now
Yeah.
that I'm not,
You would still
even
be
though
in the system, so
I'm
to
in the
speak.
system.
Right.
So yeah. So I kept, and then I was just having a conscious, because I also went down a path of faith as well, and a lie is a lie. And I was just having a hard time with that. So I just felt like after a while, I just wanted to come clean and just be like, I'm not. So now if I need to do a CT scan or want to do a CT, I'm on a wait list, could be 6 months.
Right.
7. And that really made me upset about our system too.
Sure.
Because I still am, and I need that, might
Right.
need it.
Yeah.
However, with research, those dyes that they put in your blood to make it all
Visible, yeah.
visible
Yeah.
are not good for you.
No.
They're really not good for you. So I've made the decision. The people go, well, how do you know if you're getting better? How do you know if it's gone? I can tell by how I feel.
Sure.
It's old-fashioned. Just, I don't need a doctor or a machine to tell me. It's like, and if I know it's getting worse right now,
Yeah.
what is that going to do for my mental health?
Right.
So and that's the other thing. When I went in and I was getting CT scanned to death with my oncologist during this as well, I'm like, you shouldn't get 6 or 7 CT scans in your lifetime. Like, and you guys have done that in a year.
Wow.
And she's like, well, how do I say this? We don't think long term with people like you.
Right.
And my sister's chin, I just hit her.
Right.
That was the first time she went,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. And that's when I was like, yeah, I think this relationship's done. It
Right.
mentally wasn't good, because
Yeah.
I know what you believe is true. And when people say they have 2 years to live,
Right.
the studies, they almost die on that day.
Right. Absolutely.
Right to it, because they've been told and they focus on it.
Yeah.
And the power of the mind is probably the number one for healing, for success, for everything, for life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So I already knew that, and I'm like, okay, I can't work with this lady.
Yeah.
So that was a big aha moment where it was
Another
like,
divorce in your
yes,
progression.
another
Yeah.
divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I came clean and said I wasn't using that, and it was actually good, because then I didn't have to because mentally going back and seeing, then you have to go back to your appointments.
Right.
And going there, it
Yeah.
was just not mentally good for me, so you have to be very careful.
Yeah, your
with-
energy when you're going in, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't really want to be there.
And now I'm
you're
constantly lying.
Yeah,
and it's
misleading,
like,
and yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I needed to just come clean.
Yeah.
And so came clean, and been going strong holistic, and throwing I wanted at first to do it to just show people, like, you can do it.
Right.
It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money.
Right.
And then, anyways, it ends up going crazy. Like, because you research something, which leads to another thing, which leads to another thing, and then another thing. And then before you know it, you have like this whole book that's dedicated to health, full of all these possible solutions. And start throwing money at everything. And
Right.
everybody has a solution.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cure.
Yeah. So hard to know between what's being promoted for business,
Yeah.
as for profit, and what's being promoted for actual pure research and health.
Right.
right? Because you still have to charge for the pure research and health.
Yeah.
But sometimes the whole profit stuff, they've forgone that, and they're just trying to make a buck. And then
Exactly.
how, as a third party to that, you have no idea which one is which.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you hire, and just to go see a holistic doctor is $250.
Right.
Just for the interview.
Right.
So I think I interviewed 4 different holistic doctors,
Wow.
which was $1,000.
Yeah.
So,
And even though they're holistic, they're not all created equal, just like
I know.
regular doctors.
and
So,
I felt that they were also trapped in a system.
okay, interesting.
So some of them, they were a holistic doctor and they're under an umbrella. And it was like, I don't know, it was just too cookie cutter for
Yeah.
me. When nobody asked me to figure out what was going inside my body. Why is my body
Right.
not killing the cancer when I know it can?
Right. Well, and the critical question is, what is causing this?
Yeah.
And no one, I think up to this point, no one's ever asked you
That's right.
what is causing this.
Yes.
And you might not have
Other than my friend or the holistic doctor who became, because he
in the California doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Other
Yeah.
than him, but
the most important question in the
Yeah.
whole process.
Yeah, they were just hitting me up with the vitamin C and this and that, and they just threw all this stuff. But I'm like,
Yeah.
that is known to get rid of or has a chance.
Yeah.
But I want what is going on inside of me,
Right.
because I don't want to now get better and then deal with it again.
Right.
I want this.
You've already had that experience.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Which I've also learned that people can live a long time with cancer.
Yes.
Because it can be in you, but it doesn't have to grow.
Right.
And you don't have to kill your body. So that's another peace of mind that it might not really
Totally
ever
go
go
away.
away. Maybe
Right.
I'm always going to be going through this.
Yeah.
But because of my lifestyle choices every single day, that I can keep it at bay.
Right.
And that there's a lot of truth to that too. When we get diagnosed with cancer, we just think of dying and chemo.
Right.
So we just go that route, when if you can just stop, you're like, wow, there's a lot of people who've had it for like 20. A lot of people have it and they've never known they had it because they were never diagnosed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's just
And they've
doesn't.
lived with it.
They lived with it.
Yeah,
So
without
sometimes
ever
I
knowing.
question if some of these decisions we make
Absolutely.
is the reason why they get so unwell so quickly and then don't make it, because it's so.
And the belief systems they get told.
Oh, exactly.
Right. But I got to
Exactly.
ask you, so you mentioned this whole idea of if I just keep doing what I do day to day, if I can live with this.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people at the outset, before they
Yeah.
got to your point in your journey, that really scares them, because they think of
Yeah.
things like, taking lots of vitamin pills, or they think of a restricted diet where they have to cut out all the things that they
Right.
like, whether it be, pizza or who knows, pick it.
Yeah.
But they don't want to, they're actually scared of living a healthy life, because they think
Right.
they'll be deprived of all these comforts that they're
It
grown used to.
is,
So
yeah.
I really want to get your opinion on how you felt about that,
Mm-hmm.
and then but how you feel now, because my take on it is, once you get into it and you have this new lifestyle and you've cut out a lot of the garbage, you actually feel really good, and it's actually really sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
You have this fear going into it, but it never turns out to be that way. It's like, wow, I can't imagine going back and eating all that garbage
I
and
know.
sitting on my butt or being overweight or whatever the situation is. And I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, our world is just very hard to make those good, clean decisions every single day.
Right.
Because it is, when you're saying no to going out for drinks, it's sad, because you're like, you almost have, because I'm fighting cancer. And then they're like,
Oh, right, yeah.
But why is it that I have to be fighting cancer to say no to having a drink?
Right.
Because it's like almost socially unacceptable to say no to having a drink with someone now.
Right.
So, and it's just normal to have pizzas and normal to have, all these types of foods, which I'm grateful for, because my body's always been sensitive, which is, it only likes the good stuff. And actually my
Right.
friend said, he goes, well, think of yourself as a Lamborghini. You
Right.
can't put any gas in the Lamborghini.
Right.
You're just made better than everyone else. I'm like, yeah, I'm holding on to that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
So, because I never ate French fries. I never ate McDonald's. I never ate that stuff. So for that, to me, I'm
Yeah.
grateful. That was easy.
Yeah.
You know, to get off the wine was, I didn't realize that I had an addiction to wine
Sure.
and beer. And I did not, I wasn't an alcoholic, but
Right.
you just tie up everything. Like when I was done doing a hard mountain bike ride, you'd have a few beers. When you,
Yeah.
at Friday night, you'd have your
Right.
wine. When you went out and like, it was more like just a habit that associated with different days and different things that you were doing. You associate with relaxing. So just being able to relax
Yeah.
without turning to that probably took me a while. But to the point where I just don't even think about drinking. Right? So where it's like, So I did actually treat my friend when we did our hike the other day, and we take a beer up. And so we both took a beer up, and I'll have like one very rarely here and there. And we get to the top of the mountain and we have a beer and we cheers but it's so rarely. And actually I only drank half of it and poured the rest out. And then I was like, I actually felt pretty buzzed, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know if I even like this anymore.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no. But yeah, the lifestyle changes, is hard. And to be 100% all the time, I was for quite a long time.
Okay.
And on a diet that I thought was working for me. So I did go all raw vegan.
Okay.
I did high amounts of juicing. So it's crazy. I was juicing 10 pounds of carrots every 2 days.
Every 2 days?
Yeah, with 2 beets, with a whole thing of celery.
Yeah.
With some ginger, with, it was with 2 green apples.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of juicing. So I bought a really fancy juicer, and I was drinking 6 cups of this. I turned orange, so I was pretty orange on my hands.
Yeah.
But I just looked like I had a tan.
Right.
A really weird tan.
Yeah.
But it was still a tan. And so.
And how long did you do that for?
I did that now because I was re-diagnosed. So that's what I jumped into, was the raw vegan.
Yeah.
And so just up until late, actually. So for 2 years.
Wow. Okay.
So it was just in October, November, where I was feeling not well again.
Okay.
So I was like, what is going on with my body? Something isn't right.
Right.
And so I'm grateful. I found a career, so I'm making a new career, so I'm making really good money again, which I'm so grateful. If I didn't go the holistic route, I wouldn't have had the energy to even look at starting a new business.
Right.
Right. And
So during this process, you felt like you were getting better. You're doing the juicing.
Oh,
You had
totally.
energy.
Yes.
It's like, this is the right track.
It
You're
was.
feeling good.
I felt good. My results were great. My inflammation went down completely. Like my blood work, my doctor was like, whatever you're doing, Leah, just keep doing it.
So that 50 pounds that you had from that inflammation
It was
earlier.
coming down.
Okay.
And then I was like gaining it back, eating raw vegan.
Right.
And I'm like,
that doesn't make
what's
sense.
going on? Like,
Right.
why am I gaining weight again and feeling bloated, and my energy was lost? And so
it's kind of round 3 now. It's like, I've had
That's
this feeling
right.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I found a holistic doctor locally,
Okay. A new one?
a new one.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, so I went for an interview, and again, I put it out there. I had his appointment before, and I couldn't afford him because I knew I could afford the appointment, but if he put me on a treatment, I
Yes.
probably couldn't afford it anymore because of spending so much money already.
Right.
And my previous business was not doing well. Sadly, after COVID, a lot of businesses went down, and this one wasn't paying like it used to pay because of what they were going through. So I started this new business in December, and I could already tell this is gonna, thank goodness, like, this is
The
gonna,
business was going to work.
is gonna work.
Yeah.
And money is all about health to me.
Okay.
Right. And having a warm, wonderful place for me and my son, because my son still lives with me full time. So I had this appointment, and he came with good reviews, and so I'm like, okay, I'll see how it is. And I already said no already to 4 different holistic doctors in the past. And so he was the first one who said, okay, I said, I went in there going, okay, I think I need this, 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 and this, because I've already researched.
Yeah.
I
So
came
you're
in there
coming
like,
in, you're like, this is what I need. Yeah.
He's like, sat back, and he's like, yeah, you might need all of this, but I'd like to do some testing.
Okay.
To find out what your body is lacking in before I put you on anything. It's like shooting a dart and trying to hit.
Right.
I need to find a system for you. That was the first holistic doctor that asked for testing. I'm
or
like,
any doctor, I guess.
anyone.
Right?
Yeah, any doctor. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds great.
Right, yeah.
Like, let's do that. Why are we not doing this?
Right. Seems obvious once it's out loud.
Yeah. So scheduled these testing, and there's like 4 different ones. And again, I just started this new career, so I'm like, okay, 2. And of course, you got to spend money on it.
Yeah.
So, I can't remember, it was $1,000, maybe a little bit more. And the results came back, and it was interesting because he could tell on my results that I had my pineal gland was so small.
Yeah.
And he said, whatever you've gone through in your life, you cannot handle stress anymore. You're done.
Yeah.
I can tell you've been through a lot, and you cannot handle anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So I knew, why the cause was, right, from my marriage, and I knew that needed to go. And so I was like, and how there's testing out there that can tell this.
Right. So do you know what he did for testing as opposed to what you did earlier?
Well, I can't even remember. I should have looked that up. But it is quite common to do this testing, and they just send it off.
Okay.
So it's a P test. So you do it at different times with, before whatever, and you do like 7 different times or whatever. So, yeah.
So probably some pH testing in there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and then a hormone one as well,
Okay,
because mine was hormone-fed cancer.
Right, yeah.
So we did those testings. So from that, he can tell there's a lot of toxins in me. Well, of course, I've done how many CT scans and
that alone,
the
right?
chemo, the radiation from years ago, which I've done like heavy metal detoxes, and I've done a lot of detoxes for sure. But these are things that it's very hard to get rid of out of the body. So, that, like, I am still high in so what he's doing for me and what I'm lacking in too. So he could make the vitamin bags that I do intravenous treatments now every week.
Oh, every week?
Every week, yeah.
Okay.
And he can adjust them for me.
Right.
Right. So to make them for me, right? Not for just people who have cancer.
Right. Not just vitamin C. Here you go.
Yeah, that's right. So, and other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what we were doing. And then I was, and then I just still wasn't feeling great. And I'm like, hey, something else is up. So then.
So after the intravenous, regular sessions, and then you're a month or so into that, and it's like, it's not really changing.
I'm not feeling any better. I'm like, I'm still not feeling good. So then I asked for a food sensitivity test because I just did not want to drink my juice anymore.
Right.
I am like,
it's been a couple of years at that point.
My stomach was hurting.
Right.
I wasn't feeling good. I was taking a lot of pre-probiotics and stuff, thinking it was a gut issue.
Yeah.
So through another food sensitivity, whether I've had it all along or I probably developed it, just overdoing it. I developed a lot of sensitivities to vegetables.
Right.
So he's like, how blunt can I be? And I'm like, just be blunt. Just tell me. He goes, if you continue to eat this way, you are going to kill yourself. Like, this is not good. Your body is like, he goes, just look at you. You're active and you're bloated. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I said, I know. That's why I took the test. He goes, this is a great test. So now and it's being open to change ideas.
Right. Because you had that paradigm. It's like, this is going to work. And for a while it did.
It did.
Right. So you confirmed your own bias. And then now it's like not working.
Yeah.
And it's, your brain kind of, it's like wires cross. And it's like, what? How is this possible?
So you kind of have to go back to the beginning all the time and reassess and readjust. So yeah, so I completely shifted, and so now I'm eating, which I was told to be scared of meat, but then there's a whole, that's the thing when you research, and then there's this
Right.
whole other group of people who are healing with meat too.
Right.
So
Yeah,
of
the
course,
carnivore diet right now
that's
very popular
right.
with all kinds of diseases.
all kinds.
Yeah.
So now I'm going more carnivore, but and fruit was low on sensitivities, and not
Okay.
all vegetables. So I'm having some vegetables, just not overdoing it.
Right.
Right. So as I was, and no dairy, and no sugar, and no
Right.
breads, and that kind of stuff. So
And did this come from you, or did this come from your new naturopath doctor?
new naturopath and the food
Okay.
sensitivity. So now I'm just working with food sensitivities, and that can change. So I'm going
Right.
to continue to take that and ongoing. So yeah, and I did find that I did have fluid again on my lungs, which I was a bit
Okay.
upset about. So I had to get that drained actually just 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
But not a
so
whole
this is
lot.
still very real for you
It's
right
still
now.
very real. I'm still in it.
Yeah.
But yes, but when I think about it, honestly, I've learned so much. I learned to appreciate our bodies, how capable they are of healing themselves if we can create this right environment for
Right.
them to heal. And just learning about this disease and how it's taken over my life, clearly.
Yes.
Right? So what I put in my mouth, I think, like literally, if I'm cheating, this is going to kill me. This is going
Right.
to heal me. This is going to kill me. This is what like.
Right.
I'm making those conscious decisions every single day, which people should be making before.
Right.
We take it for granted.
Yeah.
But we wait until we get sick, which don't do it, people, because the odds aren't good in our favor nowadays. Everyone's getting something.
Yeah. The rates are through the roof on everything, right?
Through the roof. And so, and why we can't have access to these testing to find out what is going on inside of us, on a day-to-day to keep us healthy when it is proven to work. That's being proactive with your health. And that's why I wish we could have this marriage with our holistic doctors and our medical doctors, and why we don't have that for free.
Right.
Right? Because
Yeah.
then that would keep a lot of people. And if we can learn about how, find out, oh, that's so amazing, just to hear the testimonials of people with their kids and their kids being completely out of whack, and all they needed was a supplement.
Right.
That helps
It was
balance
just
their
a deficiency
hormones.
in something.
Yeah.
Right. You find out that deficiency and the problems disappear.
Yeah, because you're getting IV treatments. You talk to different people all the time, and what brought them there, and their stories, and
Yeah.
their family stories. It's pretty amazing what we can do if we get the right advice, and we use our intuition too.
Right.
It's coming from your own intuition. So, yeah. So there's been a lot of lessons. And I know stress is my biggest one. So stress was why I got sick.
Yeah.
So I was the one, just put it on my shoulders. I can take it.
Right.
I'll never say that again.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And just really, and knowing that my energy out to people is hurting or healing,
Okay. Yeah.
as well as the energy I receive from people is hurting or healing.
Right.
So you treat people differently.
Right.
You respect people differently.
Yeah.
You love people differently. I hate to say it, I wish everyone could get really, really sick and then get better.
Right. So they can have that appreciation, that understanding even.
But some people do get really sick and they never learn it.
Right. And
So
never get better.
They never get better. So
Right.
that's been my journey.
Yeah.
I've done this I'm very proud of myself. I've been very positive throughout
Yeah, absolutely.
everything I went through. And because I have a choice.
Right.
And if I'm not, I want to be here. I want to be here for my kids, and I'm not afraid to die.
Yeah.
I've already visited that, but I don't want my kids to lose their mom yet.
Sure.
I want to climb our mountains.
Right.
I want to go snowboarding more. I want to
Yeah.
ride my bike more. I want to go touring again. And there's so much enjoyment in this world and in this life
Yeah.
that I haven't even experienced yet, and I'm really excited
Sure.
about
And
it.
you're young enough that it's all
right there.
right there for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had my kids young. This is my
Right.
time to
Right.
play.
Exactly.
So, anyways, but yeah, I know there's a solution. I know there's a cure for cancer. I know that. I know it's there. Will we ever have that disclosed in our lifetime? I don't know.
Right. Well, from my experience, I think it gets disclosed in many different ways. And
Right.
I think, for example, our conversation right now discloses a lot of truths.
Yes.
That it's different. If you think of a cure of just taking one treatment or one pill or things like that, then yeah, I don't expect that to ever happen.
No.
But if you think of it in terms of it's you know, we've used the term holistic approach, but it's just, it's multifaceted. It's not just one, it's not just diet, it's not just relationships, it's not just different treatments or supplements. You know, it's looking at the whole thing and what's your situation, because what caused your cancer, even though it might be the same cancer, might be breast cancer or some other type of cancer, is not going to cause cancer in somebody else necessarily. And so you don't need to do the same things for sure. And I think there's people that are telling their stories more and more now, and they're writing books about it, they're creating documentaries about it. And if we're open to hearing those stories, then the cures are out there, but they're not the cures in the way that we think of them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's definitely out there, and I think you know, a big part of the coaching that I do is reading those books, watching those documentaries. And so on a regular basis, you're hearing all these success stories.
Yeah.
And they're not all the same. You
That's
know,
right.
some people do it on the vegan raw diet. Some people do it on a carnivore diet. Some people do it with certain supplements. Some people do it with other treatments.
Yeah.
But putting that all together and, like you said, having your own gut intuition and what's my situation and what can work for me. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And your story resonated with so many other stories that I've heard, in that there's these common themes. And not that your story is the same as anybody else's, but the themes are exactly the same with the medical system. It's just not a health system, right?
Yeah.
It's sick care is what you called it.
Yeah.
And that happens in, like I said, probably 90% of the stories that I hear and that I've lived through with my family. And there are options out there. That's the other part of it, is that you're not just in this box, even in Canada. I mean, it's free to you as the patient going to our healthcare system, but it's not free to the system. It still costs $70,000, $80,000 for your cancer treatment. It's not coming out of your pocket. And the costs are much less if you go these other ways. It's just much more to you as an individual,
Right.
but less to society.
Yeah.
And so there's so many, you know, there's so much value in what you're talking about and other people's stories about just saying, yeah, it's possible. So
It is.
you're so far into this journey, and I'm sure, I mean, I get the overwhelming feeling just listening to you, but I'm sure you have the same feeling that, yeah, like it's not going to win. You've already beat it, and you've changed your paradigm, and if you have to change your paradigm again to adjust to a new way of thinking, you'll do that again.
Yeah.
And you'll probably, you know, at 70 years old, you'll be healthier than all your other, you know, peers at that age group.
And I know people are, because I listen to those stories. So if I get down,
Right.
it's what we put in our brains, right? And
Right.
I'm like, nope.
And you're
to these
listening to your
stories.
body now.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So from the meditation to the oxygen chambers I do, to
Right.
the fasting, to the eating, to the no stress, now change my career. And like, it's about, and it's a good feeling living this way. Like,
Right.
I wished I lived this way well before I
Right.
got sick.
And that's the big lesson, is that you go into it with all this fear about these changes because it's the unknown. But then you make the changes, they're your new normal, they're your habits now. It's like, I can't imagine that. Why did I ever do that?
Yeah.
Right? And you end up,
100%.
instead of it being the worst 5 years of your life, like at the end, it now becomes almost the best 5 years of your life.
Yeah.
And maybe
is,
not right when you're
actually.
making the change, but once you get through the change and the reflection, it's like, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and that is very true. I've probably, through the worst time of my life, am having the best time of my life.
Right.
100%.
Right. And I bet you feel like that's going to continue, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to attract great people and more
Right,
things
exactly. Because your
my
energy
attitude and
is
my
way up
energy
there.
is
Yeah,
up there.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I see that. It's so obvious to a third party. It's like when you're outside
Yeah.
the forest, you can see it.
Yeah.
But when you're in the forest, you
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. So I see this with you. I see it with all the other people that I talk to about this. And it's interesting now. I can almost predict when people first get diagnosed based on their responses. It's like I also have this sense of how well they're going to do with it and their chances of success. And it's because, again, I see these patterns. They repeat themselves and the attitudes and all that kind of stuff that you're going to beat it for sure. And you basically already have. And it's just continuing down that road.
Perfect.
So thank you so much for coming again.
Thank you for having me.
Every time I talk to somebody, I learn new things. I've learned a lot of new things with you, and I think everybody listening to this, hopefully they take something away as well. And I'd like to just say that extra support, whether you already have some support or not, bringing someone in like a cancer coach or someone that you can trust and go through this journey with that's supportive can make all the difference in the world. It'll be more important than taking a specific supplement or doing a certain treatment. It's that overall feeling of energy, positive energy, and moving forward and hope. At the end of the day, you've got to have that hope.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome.